The sales hire is going to fail, and you're going to think that it's because that person sucks. Hello, and welcome back to Revenue Remix. I'm your host, Summer Poletti, founder and CRO of Rise of Us, where I help CEOs and founders avoid wasting money on bad sales. And today it's just you and me. This is the first in a 3-part series about just that thing. What I realized is that there are a lot of the conversations that happen between me and my collaborators that don't really make it on air. So I talk a lot about avoiding wasted money on growth strategies that fall flat, the most of which is an expensive sales hire. But I realized that I'm not telling you, the audience, what any of that looks like. So today, I'm going to start that conversation. And I'm going to start it with, maybe you don't know what is missing in order to make that sales hire succeed. So I'm going to pull it back a little bit and talk about when people refer me, usually it's a CMO, it might be a recruiter, it might even be a CFO, maybe it's a board member or an advisor, but it's somebody that has the ear of the CEO. And they hear the CEO making growth plans, and they usually sound like, let's hire a salesperson. Let's expand the sales team. And the person listening goes, because they see a few things that maybe the CEO doesn't. And usually it is that there's some systemic just stuff missing. And they can kind of see the end of the movie while watching the trailer, and they know that that sales hire is not likely to succeed unless that CEO finds a magical sales hire. And when you're scaling between $2 and $25 million, you can't afford the magician, right? So we're going to talk about what ready looks like in this series. So there are 2 different types of CEOs that are thinking about growing. Both of them are planners, and one of them is a very clear strategic planner. And that one is somebody who goes, I've heard about all of the horror stories, and I want none of that. So I want somebody to come in and help me plan this, who knows sales, a sales expert, an expert strategist, what have you. Someone like yours truly, by the way, shameless plug. And then there's another person who goes, I'm not from sales, so I'm going to find somebody who's experienced and well-networked, and they'll build it for me. And do you see the slight difference in there? Both of them, by the way, they do the work. They put up the job description, they think of the comp plan, they think of onboarding day, they have a CRM, all that good stuff. But the big difference is in the middle. It's like, what are they stepping into? What happens after they do their onboarding packet with HR? That is where we start to see a divide between who is setting their sales folks up to succeed and who is making an expensive bet. So each of them comes to me with something different in mind. There is the proactive planner who I mentioned. They say, hey, help me build this before I make an expensive mistake. I don't want to have a horror story to tell. And then the second one comes to me and says something like, my sales hire failed. I should have called you sooner. And then my work basically does the same thing regardless of where the CEO is starting from. One of them is in a slightly better headspace than the other, but the work is still the same. What I do is I look at what they have and I find the gaps, and then we fill those gaps. And then at the end, what we have is the super proactive strategic planner CEO, his first sales hire succeeds. And then the I should have called you sooner CEO, he gets a much better experience the next time he hires someone. So let's talk about those gaps first. No clearly defined ideal client profile or your best customer or who you serve best. We service everybody. We work with all industries. We work all across the globe. We work with all sizes. We work with all stages. That does not let a salesperson imagine who they should target. You would think that if you gave the entire universe to a salesperson, they would be happy and they would think, great, I can talk to anybody. But really what they get is an inability to focus. So you have to have, here is the person that you should call. Here is how we help them better than anybody else that's out there. Here is the outcome that we get them that changes their business life. Giving that to a salesperson, gold. I also see no sales process. Sometimes I hear, well, we just serve the client. Okay, that's fine for customer service. When someone hasn't bought from you yet, they're a prospect, not a client. So you owe them nothing. And the reason why I get a little strict here about a sales process is because you should know exactly why people buy, why they don't buy. You should know the objections. You should know who's on the buying committee. You should know what buying ready looks like. You should know what the trigger is that finally causes somebody to realize that they need your solution. You should know all of those things. So you lead the buyer through the process because you know what to look for. If your salesperson is out there being helpful and giving the buyer what they want, do you have any idea what that buyer is actually doing? Are they serious about needing your solution, or are they price checking their current vendor? Or did they just have some spare time and they're curious and they want to know what else is out there just in case? Or this is also the killer. Do they owe something at a board meeting or an executive meeting and they were supposed to get 3 quotes and they only have 2 and they're scrambling and you're the quota filler? You have no idea what that buyer's intentions are. So until you know that, you should not be servicing them. You have to have a defined process so that it's not just all over the place. And that's how you get a pipeline that is easier to project. Sales process. Another gap is an elevator pitch. Your new salesperson is going to need to hit the phones right away. I like them on the phone end of week 1, even if they still feel a little like, I don't know the demo yet. I don't know this yet. I don't know whatever. I want to be polished, blah, blah, blah. I want them while they're still feeling that new job energy to get on the phones. And the only way that you can get them on the phones right away and have them feel even a tiny bit of confidence is if you've got examples of an elevator pitch. Here is what you can say to hook somebody. You have to have that. And whoever is the CEO or the sales leader, they have to be able to deliver it and show the new salesperson. If the people that are in leadership in the company can't do that, that's a trust breaker with your new salesperson, by the way. Another thing I see lacking is no real onboarding plan. And I am not talking about that 1 half a day that they spend with HR reading the handbook that talks about all the stuff they can't do. That's not onboarding, signing your, benefits package or whatever. That's onboarding with HR. What I am talking about is a structured onboarding and sales success plan with metrics and milestones that ties their learning journey to your revenue. For the B2B SaaS companies that I work with, I have a 2-year success plan. Okay. Because in a high trust environment, your salesperson is not really hitting it and crushing it until into year 2. So you need to know if they're likely to succeed. And they also have to know if they're likely to succeed. At a minimum, you should have a 90-day success plan. And you know why 90 days? Because that is when you have to give that review, and that is when the probationary period is done. So 90-day success coaching, tie it to milestones that lead to revenue success signals. And those are the top gaps that tell me whether you're ready to hire a salesperson or whether we have a little bit of work to do, that will at least mean that the salesperson is stepping into a system that is designed to help them succeed. Because here's the thing. If you hire without a sales system, two things are going to happen. The sales hire is going to fail, and you're going to think that it's because that person sucks or they didn't work hard enough or something like that. And I have seen that. Not every salesperson works hard. Some of them just want leads delivered on a silver platter that all they have to do is close. The other thing that might happen, what if you find that magical, hungry salesperson who can do cold outbound, can close, can also ask for referrals, can do a halfway decent demo, but also the person who can manage pipeline, who can create a strategy for you. Those people exist. By the way, I think that most of them will probably become entrepreneurs someday, because if you can do all of that, why not work for yourself? But let's pretend you found the person who can do all of that full cycle sales in addition to some process and strategy, and they do it for you, and they build your sales motion. Wonderful. Now ask yourself, what happens when they get recruited by your biggest competitor? What happens when they just quit? That should be in the mind of every CEO who's ever had someone quit on them or who has worried, hey, that person took a long lunch. Like, what's up with that? Do you really want your entire growth motion in the brain of an employee? You probably don't. So this is why we do the foundational work. I hope you found some inspiration in this. Follow along as we talk about what it will take to avoid a 150 to 500K mistake that you really can't afford.